Welcome to this month's Heart Bunch video. We are the Heart Extension faculty with Utah State University Extension, and we're doing a heart-to-heart segment where two Heart Extension faculty are interviewing an expert in the field. My name is Gabby, and I'm joined here by my colleague Matt and our guest Philip Estes, and we are talking about improving relationships and kind of the importance of that and ways to be able to improve relationships. So I'm going to give Philip a chance to introduce himself, and then we'll get into the questions.
Yes, well, thank you so much for inviting me today and having me on to talk about ways to improve relationships and strengthen relationships. My name is Philip Estes. I'm the Senior Project Coordinator over the Healthy Relationships Utah Initiative here at Utah State University. I've been here a little over 9 years, and I just love the work we do. We offer free workshops throughout the whole entire state of Utah, anything from dating to couples to parenting to step families. And so, we're just a group of people that are passionate about helping people have stronger relationships.
Cool. Thank you so much. So, actually, well, this question is really important, I think, to start us off with. When we think about relationships, we kind of think about people who are maybe are a couple or have been married or whatever. But really, when we think about strengthening or improving relationships, who can benefit from this? So, who is this topic for?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really great question. Most of our workshops are really geared towards, either romantic or familial relationships. But a lot of the skills that we teach and courses that we teach really transcend those relationships. Things like communication, conflict resolution, those can help any of us in all aspects of life, right? And so, I think a lot of the skills that we teach in our free workshops can really help us out throughout our daily lives at the grocery store, with our neighbor, or at work.
Yeah, that's a great point, Philip. We definitely have relationships everywhere we go, even if they're not romantic in nature or anything like that. What are some strategies that couples could use to improve their relationships?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think over the years, I've kind of taken all of this information, all the curricula that we teach and offer, and kind of personalized it for myself. And so I would offer a few, I guess, 4 tips today for couples if they want to improve or strengthen their relationships. The first is to make time for your partner. The second would be to be selfless in that relationship. The third is to have open communication. And the last would be to maintain your physical connection and intimacy with your partner.
Right, awesome. So actually, let's dive into it. So, how can couples make time for their relationships?
Yeah, this is such an important aspect of relationships. We live in a world that is full of great technology, but at the same time, that technology can be a distraction. And so I think, to make time, you just have to be intentional about it, just like you are, with your work schedule, or with your doctor's appointments. You pencil it in or you schedule it somehow, and it's just written into your schedule, and you know that that's what the expectation is, and that's where you're going to be. So do the similar, take that similar step with your relationships. Really be intentional about the time that you're going to spend with your partners. Um, so ways that you can do that, it could be daily, check-ins, daily check-ins. So when you get home from work, just debrief a little bit. Talk about your day, the goods and the bads. Sometimes if we don't talk about the bads, it can build up. Even if it's from work and not necessarily that relationship, it can build up, and it can actually kind of start affecting your personal relationship. So, just kind of debrief and talk about your day. Plan trips together. Have something to look forward to together and to plan. Um, there was an interesting research that I came across on this topic, and so it actually suggested that couples who try new experiences together maintain higher levels of passion and satisfaction. And so there's something to be said about getting out of your comfort zone, or getting out of that that routine that you might have, and just experiencing new things together can actually help increase your satisfaction in your relationship. I'll go back to kind of the being intentional and the technology aspect to this. There's something that we call technoference with some of the classes that we teach, and it really focuses on our phones, right? And so, when you schedule that time in, and you're having that intentional time with your partner, turn your phone off or put it in another room, and just eliminate that distraction, because the phone, you can be sitting right next to somebody on a couch and not really be spending any meaningful time with them, right? So the smartphones that we all have today can really be a distraction to relationships. So turn them off, put them in another, put them in another room, and really be present in the moment.
And Philip, you also mentioned being selfless. How can couples be selfless and practice that?
Yeah, this is also very important. This is I look at this. I don't know if you've heard of the Love Languages by Gary Chapman, but I really like that. I like that curriculum and that methodology, because it really is an individual approach, right? And so, some people like to hear words of affirmation, or like to receive a gift, or physical touch, whatever it is. It's different for all of us. And so your love language might be different, and probably is different than your partner's. And so if you give them a gift and they're just like, oh, that's neat, and they throw it on the bed, well, that's, receiving gifts probably isn't their love language. So, look into that, and get to know your partner and their love language, so that you can really, speak to them on their level and how it is meaningful to them. Express appreciation and gratitude to them. Be forgiving and let go of resentment. There's the idea of this emotional piggy bank, and so I like this kind of metaphor where, when you do kind things for your partner, you're making deposits into that piggy bank. But as humans, we all make mistakes. We all get grumpy sometimes, or get impatient, and when that happens, there are debits taken out of that, right? Kind of this metaphorical piggy bank. And so the idea really is to make sure that you're making regular deposits into that emotional piggy bank. So yeah, it needs to be kind of a regular thing built in, where you're, just always thinking about your partner. I would say, being selfless doesn't mean becoming a doormat, though. It just means really keeping your partner in mind and being intentional about the ways that you show affection and love to them.
Yeah, definitely important. I understand that for sure. So the third point you mentioned was having open communication. And this plays such a key role, obviously, in relationships and anything in our lives, right? Having that communication, being able to communicate and listen. So what are ways that couples can communicate together?
Yeah. Yeah, this is one of those topics that we cover that really transcend the human experience, right? I think, we're going to communicate at some point in almost every single day of our lives. And so I think it's important to remember also that there's a lot more than just the words that we say, right? There's the body language and the emotion behind the words. And so there's something to be said about being open with your partner, letting them know how you feel without putting any blame on them. And so one of the tools I really like with communication is using I statements. I feel lonely when you come home late from work and don't have dinner with me. You're letting your partner know how you feel, and you're tying it to that scenario, so that you can have an open conversation about maybe ways that you can overcome that. So I think I statements are really, really important. Stay calm, don't get defensive, don't try to point the finger or place blame. And that's why I really like the I statements. I had someone make a comment to me once that really resonated with me. And he said, arguments can literally destroy a relationship. And he said, a person has to ask themselves, do you want to be in a relationship, or do you want to be right? Do you want to win? And that really struck me. And I think it's so true. Most of the time in our disagreements or our arguments, give it a week or two and you won't even remember what you were arguing about. So, place the priority on the relationship and the person, and let them know how you're feeling without giving blame to anything that they've done.
Thanks, Philip. The last strategy you listed was physical connection. What are ways couples can maintain physical connection?
Yeah, again, so important, and there's some science behind this. And so, physical connection can be anything from holding hands to kissing to sexual intimacy. And so, the scientific side of this is that physical contact and intimacy, or sexual intimacy, actually releases oxytocin, and oxytocin can actually promote feelings of love and trust and attachment. And so that's why it is so important to do these things on a regular basis. You know, and I think there's, you know, deeper into the science, you know, if you kiss for 10 seconds and you hug for 20 seconds, you know, there's kind of a scientific calculation to that. But, you know, making sure to have physical contact with your partner is so, so important for both of you. And it works all through your brain and those chemicals that your brain produces. And so research actually finds that affectionate touch reduces stress and and increases relationship satisfaction. So again, doing these things that are showing your partner love and affection and all those things actually also helps you. It's a two-way street, right? So yeah, you know, definitely make sure to maintain that physical connection and intimacy on a regular basis.
I love that. It's such a nice reminder, especially as, you know, someone maybe has been in a relationship for a long time and maybe they just kind of let that one go a little bit, or they feel like there is just not become a priority anymore. But even those little bits of affection, those little displays of just, you know, showing that you care and you know, love that person. So these have all been really great, and I think I really appreciate the strategies you provided and things that the listeners or the viewers can take and really try these out, you know, after watching this video. But I do have to ask, are there some things that couples can do if they find they aren't getting kind of the results that they're hoping for?
Yeah, that's a really great question. You know, I think it's human nature to want results, especially in this, you know, this instantaneous technology driven world that we live in, that, you know, you want results right now. But I would just suggest that, you know, sometimes things take a little bit of time. But if you can have open communication and build that trust with them and let them know how you're feeling and you know, attach that to any given scenario or issue that's happening, you know, build the time in so you can have those conversations and give and take equally. You know, give it a little bit of time. You know, don't rush that process. Really explore the process together and have the goal of a deeper understanding for each other and a deeper appreciation for each other, and really have an end goal of strengthening your relationship and you know, just bringing more kindness and more understanding to that relationship. And so I think, you know, if there was one thing I could suggest on that is just take your time and don't rush that process.
Well, Philip, we really appreciate everything that you've said and your expertise and being willing to meet with us. Do you have anything else that you would like to share with us and the viewers today?
Yeah, you know, I mentioned Healthy Relationships Utah, the relationship skills initiative that we have throughout the state of Utah. It's free for Utahns, and so we teach dating courses, workshops. We have workshops for couples, for parents, and for step families, actually, specifically for step families and some of those unique challenges that step families face. And so, you know, go to our website. The link will be provided. Go to our website there. We have live, you know, trained educators that teach it either in person or virtually. So no matter where you're at in the state, we can reach you. And then we also have another initiative called the Utah Marriage Commission. And, you know, that's more specifically focused on strengthening marriages. And again, there's science behind the quality of life and health for people that actually get married. And so, you know, check out our resources. The Utah Marriage Commission resources are more on demand. So, you know, if a live class isn't your thing, you know, go to that strongermarriage.org website and check out there. You know, we're trying to build kind of a database of knowledge, you know, a little bit of something for everyone. So check out our resources. We'd love to have you take advantage of the resources that we provide.
Very cool. Well, thank you again so much. This has been amazing. I love that we were able to talk about this and have you join us and provide your expertise. So thank you again, Philip. And for those who are watching this video, if you enjoyed this content and you want to check out more content from the Heart Initiative, we do have a playlist. We have a lot of videos. You can like and subscribe to this video and to our playlist and channel. to, just to keep up with what we're doing. You can also find us on social media, and we really appreciate having you here. So check out the next Heart Bunch video, and we'll see you next time. Bye.